Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and or girls. I'm your host, Greg Romero Wilson, and this is Fantasy Football Harsh Reality. And listen, let's talk harsh reality, because last week it was must-win weekend, week 12 last week, and the Wilson came through with flying colors, went 3-0 for my weekend, which, you know, that's the first 3-0 weekend I've had since week 1. And if you remember, I said going into week 1, you can't put too much stock in week 1 because it's not indicative of the rest of the season. And boy, was it not indicative of the rest of the season. I mean, most of my weekends I've had a lot of 1 and 2s. I've had a few 2 and 1s. And last weekend, when I needed it the most, we came through with a big fat 3-0 weekend to keep me in contention, in the hunt, in the playoffs, in all 3 of my leagues. But that leads us to this week, which is another must-win weekend, particularly in my league of record, where I am in 6th place, holding on by a thread, and I'm tied with 3 other guys, one of them in 5th place and one of them in 7th place, which means I have to win to get in. If I lose, I'm probably not getting in, depending on how the other games work out. My point scoring was very low throughout the mid part of the season, so I can't rely on points. I must win this game, and I'm going up against the commissioner who beat me soundly earlier in the league. But the thing about Robert Zapata, welcome to the show, talking fantasy football, you're still in number 1, but boy, I'll tell you what, you're in a vulnerable position. Now, you got that New England defense, and you're going down there. Jonathan Mesh, welcome to the show, talking to fantasy football. What's up? You're in number 1 in my friends and family league, but you're starting to slip a little bit in in our league of record, the Silent Nation Fantasy Football League. And actually, if we go to that, let me just go to that really quickly. Let's go to league. Let's go to overview. Let's see where you're at, John Match. Let's take a look. Andrew Wheeler, how are you? Listen, welcome to the show. Let's see what the standings are right now. Meshinators took a loss, dropped to 8-4. And as I said, I am tied with the guy with 5th place and 7th place. So for me, it is another must-win weekend. And listen, Andrew, your Minnesota Vikings have a very tough weekend going in there to play Seattle in Seattle. The weather's going to suck. The crowd's going to be tough. I like the Seattle defense in this one, especially if we don't have Thielen for, again, another week. But Jonathan, you are juicing pretty much everybody, although I think you lost this. Did you lose last weekend in my friends and family league because you were like number 1, and I think you may have come down with a case of the losers last weekend. Mike Maples, welcome to the show. We're talking fantasy football. Obviously, I'm doing the show a little bit early this week because, obviously, Thursday, Thanksgiving, 3 monster games going down, including my beautiful Dallas Cowboys, who took a tough loss. And let's talk about that loss really quickly that they suffered in New England. Because if anything, I think it demonstrated how vulnerable New England really is. Because we're a dome team playing in horrible weather up there. And if it hadn't been for that one blocked punt, they wouldn't have had that touchdown, and the game could have been a very different game. They only won by a few points, by 4 points, because of that touchdown. You take that mistake out of the game, and all of a sudden, it's a very tight game. It's a game we may have won. So, and also the refs I love somebody posted, they were like, the refs don't know who to cheat for right now. Fuck you. They were clearly cheating for the Patriots. They even came out and admitted that tripping call was bullshit. And that was a tripping call that cost us the game. So I think you're looking at a Patriots team that offensively is kind of stagnant right now. They are absolutely, as they have been, relying on that defense to get them turnovers and put them in positions to score. Which means if a team just plays mistake-free football, they can beat the Patriots. And I don't think the Patriots are going to be in the Super Bowl because of their lack of firepower on the offensive side. BB is out, but Thielen might play. Listen, you're going to need Thielen to play. Although hamstring injuries, I mean, even if he plays, it's the kind of situation where he's probably going to be more of a decoy because you get him out there really running, really getting hit, and you're sending him right back to the hospital. I mean, this is what we've been dealing with Emmanuel Sanders, somebody that I own in all 3 leagues. One time in one league I traded for him, and he's got the rib injury. Yeah, he's out there. I haven't been playing him in any of my leagues because I could tell you can't throw him the ball and let him get re-injured. You have to let him get all the way healed. But in the meantime, you can have him run those routes, take away a defender who has to play him, and open things up for Deebo Samuels, who I have been playing in my leagues and has been absolutely been a dime for me in those leagues. Now, the trade that I made in my league of record, in the Silent Nation League, which got me Patrick Mahomes, which got me Devontae Adams, is now, this is it. Now, last week, obviously, didn't have Mahomes, and I went with Baker Mayfield. He was playing against Miami, and he went down there and threw 3 fucking touchdowns in the first half, and I was like, woo! But then, in classic Browns fashion, they laid off, they let Miami score some points, and he didn't score another fucking touchdown for the rest of the fucking game, and I was like, way to go. This is why you're the fucking Browns. He should have had 5 touchdowns. He should have had, 6 touchdowns by the end of that game, but they let off the gas. They got all loosey-goosey, went back to their playing there. We're too talented to lose football, and they almost let the fucking Miami Dolphins get back in the game. I mean, they let them score a little bit. It wasn't close, but you know what I'm saying. I'm facing, and I think a lot of people are facing that again this week, particularly when it comes to Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, I mean, listen, they shut down Amari Cooper. They shut down Dak Prescott, in terms of scoring points. So now, do you play Deshaun Watson, although they're playing at home in a dome where they should be comfortable, but they are playing against that Patriots defense. And, Deshaun, that team is a team that, they don't have the most incredible running game with Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson. So, I mean, it's just one of those things where, yes, okay, so anyway, while I think they have a chance, I think there are 3 good quarterbacks that are going to do better, that are available on most waiver wires, that are going to do better than Deshaun Watson against that Patriots team. Number 1, Sam Darnold versus Cincinnati. Everyone's been scoring on Cincinnati. But you also have Wentz down there, again, who I'm going to go with against Miami, because if Baker Mayfield could do it, and he has Alshon Jeffrey coming back, I think he has a great opportunity to score more points. And Nick Foles, who's going up against Tampa Bay, who is ranked 31st against the pass. They're giving up tons of points. I think all 3 of those guys are going to score more points than Deshaun Watson in that very tough matchup, even though they are at home. Now, our first matchup question from Jonathan Metch, T.Y. Hilton or Williams from the Indiana running back in the flex. And I think you have to go with Williams because they're saying Marlon Mack might play. I mean, it depends on Mack. If Mack plays, you can't go with Williams. But if Mack doesn't play, if he sits out, you must go with Williams over T.Y. Hilton, just because T.Y.'s been so banged up. Again, you got to put him in that category with Adam Thielen, that even if he's out there, there's a very solid opportunity. He's out there mostly as a flex, more than as someone that's going to be a real target monster, which, of course, is what you're looking for. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Maxwell Solway. Thank you very much for chiming in. You guys, yes, and to everybody, a very happy Thanksgiving. Should I play Allen Robinson or Galladay? Now, that's a very good question. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to say, and I believe they're playing each other, right? It is Chicago. Yeah, Chicago versus Detroit at a game that starts at 9:30 in the morning here in Los Angeles. And I, for one, I'm not upset about it. I'm very excited about it. I'm completely ecstatic about getting up and watching a 9:30 a.m. game. Now, Detroit may be on their 3rd string quarterback. I guess Driscoll got a little bit banged up. Obviously, you can't just bring back Stafford because he's got broken bones in his back. We saw what happened when the Cowboys tried that with Romo, basically a career ender. So because Chicago's going to be the team with their 1st string quarterback, and Robinson had a very good game last week. He ended up putting up like 24 points. I think you have to go with the safer play is, in this case, Allen Robinson. Absolutely unequivocally. Although the Detroit defense, who I picked up and played last week versus Washington with the rookie quarterback, and even though Washington won on a last-second field goal, they didn't put up a lot of points. I think it was 4 field goals total or 3 field goals total. I think they won like 9-6. It was but the Detroit defense got like 3 turnovers, a bunch of yards, so it wound up giving me 19 points. You got to remember, Matt Patricia's a defensive guy from the New England Patriots. That's the side of the ball he's been succeeding on. So this may be a lower scoring game than anybody expects. But in the end, you have to go with Allen Robinson over Kenny Golladay just because you just don't know who's going to be throwing him the ball. If it is Driscoll, I think you got to stick. You got to stick with Allen Robinson on this one. I think that's the choice. Tim Bateman flex Cooper Kupp or Benny Snell Jr. Now, Benny Snell looked okay. I mean, he's definitely getting more touches than Jalen Samuels, which was a guy I picked up and played to no avail in one of my leagues. They're clearly leaning more on Benny Snell, and I think he plays more of the Pittsburgh style of football anyway. He's a smash mouth guy. He's a power back, But Cooper Kupp, should be having more of a game. And on paper it does, but obviously he's seen a bit of a downturn. So let's see, where are my Rams? They're up against Arizona, which the Arizona defense has been pretty generous. So that being the case, I'm going to say Cooper Kupp. For me, go with your gut, do your thing. But for me, I think you play Cooper Kupp over Benny Snell just because, one, it's an early game. It's a Thursday game. He's with Pittsburgh. So he'll be at Sunday. He'll be in an early game versus the Cleveland defense. And listen, yes, they don't have Myles Garrett now, but the Cleveland defense is still playing very good. They still have they're still a very good defense. And with Pittsburgh playing now with Devlin Hodge, and let's talk about Devlin Hodge. Because Devlin Hodge came out and looked way better than Mason Rudolph. But here's the thing. Quarterbacks, much like running backs, in that first game appearance, there's no tape on them. Nobody knows really what to do with them yet. And so they come out and they have these massive games. And then the second game is where you find out why they're a fucking backup and not a starter. And I think that's what you're going to see with Devlin Hodges. I think he's going to get rickrolled. I think they're going to stack the box to force him to throw. I don't like Benny Snell in that equation. I'm sticking with Cooper Kupp. He's got his original quarterback, and he has a very favorable matchup against that Arizona Cardinals team. Looking at Buffalo, Dallas, I mean, listen, this is so tough. But I believe that the Dallas Cowboys can I was worried about them going, listen, it didn't look good going into Foxborough, playing in that weather. I mean, yes, I had all the hope in the world, but my mind was like, this doesn't bode well for the Dallas Cowboys. But versus Buffalo, they're at home, they're in the dome, and Buffalo, yes, they're 8-3. They're doing it mostly on defense, but they make a lot of mistakes. And I think that's going to be Dallas's opportunity. It's going to be on the defensive side of the ball. They got to contain Allen. And when he runs, they're going to hit him hard. I like Dallas to win this game because I believe Dallas can put up more points on offense, even though Buffalo is a very, very good defense. It's a very good defense in a very bad division. They get the Jets. They get Miami. Yes, they have to play the Patriots. But again, the Patriots are not very good on offense this season, and that's just a fact. As I said last week, we are finally seeing the decline of Tom Brady's arm. Now, they're saying it's an elbow injury, but that's just part of him being old, So, I like Dallas to win this game. I think to win it, they're going to, which they should have just stuck with more Zeke last week. But again, they were afraid to throw the ball to Amari Cooper. I think that because of the corner, what's his name, that shutdown corner out of New England. And this week they have a very similar situation in Buffalo. But I think Dallas I think they're gonna come out. I think they're gonna play right. I think they're gonna play hard. I think Zeke has a very good day, and I think Amari Cooper bounces back in a big way in this one. And I think Dallas, again, without the weather, considering how strong they played New England in that weather in Foxborough, I like the Cowboys to absolutely go out there and win this game versus Buffalo. It may be tighter than I would like it to be. It may be a 3-pointer, but I like Dallas to win the game. And I mean that sincerely. I did not like them to necessarily win the game, and I didn't like playing them. But again, temper your expectation in terms of points, in terms of Dak, in terms of everybody. Temper your expectations. It is going to be a heavy defensive game. And on the Buffalo side of the ball, listen, they're going to be trying to shut down Josh Allen. He's the guy you got to stop. Obviously, John Brown floated back down to earth because he wasn't playing against me. So he decided he was going to go back to sucking again, and Beasley's going to be looking for revenge. But he doesn't run routes longer than 5 yards. So I'm not that afraid of Cole Beasley either. Devin Singletary's been pretty good. But again, I think Dallas is a good defense. And I think they're going to be able to slow them down and score more points. I like Dallas in that one. But again, I'm not ecstatic about a lot of these choices in terms of fantasy play. You have to temper your expectations, but don't expect Amari Cooper to only get two targets. Again, it's one of those things where, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. He's obviously upset about it. Dak is going to go out there and he is going to get the ball to Amari Cooper. Expect a pretty good day out of Amari Cooper tomorrow. I have a good feeling about Jared Cook as my flex and Zach Ertz as my tight end. Any thoughts? I also have Fuller, Curtis Samuel on the bench. Now, I got to say, Will Fuller, Jared Cook has been better, absolutely better than he's been. Now, he is the late game there versus Atlanta. Now, listen, they're in Atlanta. And I'll tell you something. Here's the weird thing. The Atlanta defense has strangely gotten a lot better over the last couple of weeks. So, even though Fuller is up against the New England Patriots, they have that takeaway thing. So who are they going to take away? DeAndre Hopkins. Who does that open up? Will Fuller. Jared Cook, even though he has been a very good tight end, and he got a touchdown, I think 2 out of the last 3 games, Will Fuller, for me, personally, I would go with Zach Ertz, who has been piling up targets and been looking at like the Zach Ertz of last year, you motherfucker. Because, of course, the second I traded him, he started playing good. Fuck you. I thought I'd really fuck this guy, too, because I got Manny Sanders for Zach Ertz. And I was like, fucking you took the fucking Ertz bait. And then, of course, Ertz fucking exploded. So fuck you, Zach Ertz, you piece of shit. But stick with Zach Ertz. I like Zach Ertz a lot in that matchup, especially against Miami. Great matchup. I think Zach Ertz scores possibly twice in that one. Personally, I would go with Will Fuller over Jared Cook in the flex. That's me. You go with your gut. If you're feeling strong about Jared Cook and all that, then stick with Jared Cook by all means. That's your thing. Go with it. That's your thing. But Maxie, baby, listen. We've been through this all season long. Are you in the playoffs right now? Are you currently in the playoffs? Thank you, Dave Kerr. Remember I was saying at the beginning of the podcast that I beat the guy who beat me in the championship, and essentially I knocked him out of playoff contention for this season while putting myself back in playoff contention. That was Dave Kerr. The Hogs. That's the other thing. He's the Washington Redskins. I'm the Dallas Cowboys, and then he knocking me. I should have won that fucking Super Bowl last year rather. And listen, I would rather have had that win and be knocked out of the playoffs this year for my 3rd title instead of you getting back-to-back titles for your 2nd. So, but I will take that. Thank you, Dave Kerr. You're a gentleman and a scholar and a hell of a fantasy football player, and I love having you in the Silent Nation League. It's a ton of fun. Let's see if we can tag. I want to tag Scott Berman. Let's see if we can add him to this. Yes, let's invite him. There we go. All right. So, you're 6-6. Should be 8-4, but 2 of my matches literally. Oh, those are the worst. Losing under 5 points. Yeah, those tough. When you lose by less than a point, and there's one. I should be a game better. I'm in 4th place in my comedians league, and I should be in 2nd place. Because I've harped about this all season. When in my drunken stupor, instead of putting in Latavius, I somehow put in Lazard and fucked myself in a game I should have easily won. Scott Berman, welcome to the podcast. You're back in there, buddy. How you doing, brother? Welcome back to the show. Obviously, huge games tomorrow. So much going on. Now, in the New Orleans-Atlanta game, here's the thing. Don't be surprised. Again, much like Buffalo-Dallas, don't be surprised if this is a much more defensive game than people expect. On the surface, it looks like it should be a very big offensive game. Obviously, you want to play Drew Brees. You want to play everybody on. You want to play everybody on the offense on the New Orleans side of the ball. We already know that the New Orleans defense is very, very good. So don't play Matt Ryan. Obviously, you have to play Julio Jones if he plays. He's a little banged up. You have to play Calvin Ridley. I would absolutely play Calvin Ridley. Hooper is out, so don't play his understudy. But on the New Orleans side of the ball, I mean, don't be surprised if again, Latavius Murray has a pretty good day. I like the offensive side of the ball, but again, temper your expectations. Again, this Atlanta defense has been playing a lot better over the last few weeks. In fact, let's look them up. Let's just take a look at the Atlanta defense, and let's just look at what they've done points-wise over the last few weeks, because I think what you're going to find, come on, bring it up, guys, Atlanta, is that they have been doing much better than people think they have been. So let's look at their defense. Okay, over the last few games, they put up 23 points at New Orleans. They put up 23 points. 40 points at Carolina. And then they had Tampa Bay at home. And even though Tampa Bay rocked them, they still put up 9 points. So they're a team that is trending in the right direction, and they've seen New Orleans, and they're at home. So again, this is a defense that has been resurgent over the last 3 games. Don't be surprised but New Orleans has so many weapons. I don't think they're going to allow them to do to them what they did originally. I think again, you have to play the Atlanta players, but it's Thursday. It's short rest week. These games tend to be fairly low scoring because of that. Temper your expectations. Joey Everline, welcome to the show. How are you doing? Scott Berman, Breeze or Lamar Jackson this week? I mean, wow, that is a very, very good question. Ooh. Now, I will say this. Lamar, they're playing at home. And what's also weird is that this is an early game on Sunday. You've got a 10-1 San Francisco team who everybody's excited about versus a 9-2 Baltimore team who everybody's incredibly excited about. And you bury them at 10 a.m. on a Sunday? That makes no sense. What are you doing, NFL? That should be the Monday night game, or at least the night game. Instead, they got Houston at New England in the night game, which isn't bad, but it's not nearly as sexy as Baltimore versus San Francisco. Now, that being the case, I mean, look, on paper, you got to play Drew Brees. On paper, Drew Breesy all day. But in reality, I mean, Lamar Jackson has just been so unstoppable. He's having that magical season. I just can't see you taking him out for anybody, even against San Francisco and that very, very good San Francisco defense. But you got to go with your gut on that one, my man. I mean, in one of my leagues, I'm sitting Deshaun Watson for Carson Wentz because Carson Wentz gets Alshon Jeffrey back and he's going up against Miami. And so I like his chances better down there. I expect him to run in a touchdown or two. I like him a lot more. And I like Sam Darnold versus Cincinnati better than I like Deshaun Watson versus that New England team. So your opponent has both Kamara and Jared Cook. So you're hoping that whatever points he gets, you'll also get those points, which I understand that thinking. Let me enjoy a little of my hot toddy. I'm having a hot toddy here on a lovely, it's actually a very, for California, it's a cloudy, chilly, very fall day. I mean, and, listen, I ain't got shit else to do today, so I'm enjoying a hot toddy while we talk. Oh, man, that's good. Listen, I'll say this, Scott. Don't game yourself out of a win. Don't overthink it. Don't overcoach yourself, because I do that all the time. I constantly overthink and then overcoach and end up losing. Sometimes you just got to go with what you know to be true, and in this case, that's that. Lamar Jackson is having a magical season. It's not like Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is not having a magical season. He's having a very up and down season. He's had a lot of bad games. I don't think Lamar Jackson has had a single bad game. Let me see, Lamar. Let's just look. Let's look up your boy. Let's look at his point totals. If we're just looking at them, look at these numbers. 41, 37, 41, 29 versus New England. The only better defense. 26, 35. I mean, his worst game was at Pittsburgh, 12 points, and that was in week 5. I mean, I just don't think 45, 35, 21, 29. I mean, I don't think you can trust your team to anybody else, regardless of the competition. For me, you stick with Lamar Jackson in this one, especially since, again, Thursday games are weird. I mean, Atlanta's defense has been resurgent. For me, I would stick with Lamar Jackson. That's just me. I think that I don't think you veer away from him, especially when you're talking about a guy who put up, 41 versus the Rams, 29, again, 29 versus New England. I mean, come on. I think you stick with Lamar Jackson in this one, especially since the offense isn't nearly as potent on the San Francisco side of the ball. What does that mean? That defense is going to be on the field for a very, very long time, which means they will wear down and Lamar Jackson's going to get him. I'm sorry, I'm a believer. I wasn't. I kept expecting him. And I'll say this too. And I get that, Berman. Yes, you're scared, but I know. It's a scary thing. San Francisco is a very dominant defense, but New England was the number 1 defense, and he put up 30 points on him. I think it's only because you have the option of Breeze versus what looks like a layup cake matchup against Atlanta. But again, keep in mind, this Atlanta defense is better than their record. They're the best part of this team. Matt Ryan's been inconsistent. Devontae Freeman has been garbage. They have no Tevin Coleman. Julio Jones has been in and out of the lineup. The only real rays of light have been Austin Hooper, who's out. He might come back, but even then, he'll be banged up. And Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley's been the one real point that's been exciting. So Kyler Murray also put up, I think, 25 points against San Francisco. So that's why I benched him and played Aaron Rodgers in what looked like was a very smart move, and it ended up fucking me. So let that be a lesson to you too. Maybe that plays into it. But again, it's your team. You make the call. You go with your gut. But listen, man, Lamar Jackson is having the Magic Man season. Okay, so if I were you, I would just stick with that. Hold on 1 second, guys. Hold on 1 second. Really quickly, I'm reheating my hot toddy because it had gotten a little lukewarm from all our conversation. But let's take a second and let's get back to the games, because we've seen these things before. We've seen, you switch your quarterback because of the matchups and stuff like that. But again, yes, if Kyler Murray can get 25 points on the Niners, I mean, Lamar Jackson went and got 30 points out of New England, and Dak Prescott, I think, was held to like 14 points or something like that. I think that absolutely just you got to stick with the Magic Man. Do not take Lamar Jackson. That's like sitting Dalvin Cook because you're going up against a great run defense. You can't do it. You have to play them because they're having that kind of a season. They call it a hot toddy. They don't call it a lukewarm toddy. So, let's move on. Cleveland versus Pittsburgh. Listen, I like the Cleveland players in this one. Hey, Lucy, how are you? My Aunt Lucy, welcome to the show. Talking a little fantasy football here. Now, I like Baker. Listen, Baker Mayfield, I've held on to Baker Mayfield as my backup in the event that Patrick Mahomes gets injured, because we are seeing now what we had hoped we would see all the rest of the season when they were totally garbage and all hyped up. Now they're showing up. And you're seeing a great team, particularly with Jarvis Landry, a guy that I drafted in one of my leagues, ended up dropping because they were all doing so bad. He's now looking incredibly good. Even OBJ is finally beginning to live up to the hype. He's starting to catch balls. Now, again, that was versus Miami last week, but this week versus Pittsburgh. While the Pittsburgh defense has been very, very good, this is another game that may turn out to be more defensive than offensive. But you're gonna play Nick Chubb. You gotta play Cleveland. I think they're heating up right now. They're trying. They want to get into the playoffs. For some reason out of nowhere, they still can. They're still in the hunt. So I love you too, Lucy. Expect Cleveland to play a very good game, and expect them to beat up on Devlin Hodges. Who I really like in this game is the Cleveland defense. I think the Cleveland defense, just like versus Miami this week, I think they have a great game versus this Pittsburgh team. I think Devlin Hodges comes out and stumbles pretty hard, primarily because, again, they didn't see him coming last week. They see him coming this week. And again, they have no running game. I mean, Connor is still completely banged up. Benny Snell, I mean, he's okay. And Jalen Samuels has become basically irrelevant. Juju Smith, I don't know. We'll see if he plays. He's banged up. We'll see if he actually gets out there. I mean, and is James Washington his go-to guy now, even if Juju comes back? You know, I had James Washington for half a minute. I let him go. And then, of course, he hit a 79-yard touchdown. Oh, wow. What are you going to do? Green Bay versus the Giants. Listen, this is a get-right game for Aaron Rodgers. This is where Aaron Rodgers should have the opportunity to light these guys up. I like everybody on the Green Bay side of the ball. And let's take a minute to mourn. Remember how I said every year there's a second-year running back that takes a huge step backwards, right? That came out and had a huge, big rookie season and then takes a huge step backwards. I did not think, and neither did any of the other experts, that it would be Saquon Barkley. And in fact, I thought it might be Nick Chubb because the rest of the team was so talented. In fact, they've had to rely on Nick Chubb, who's been pretty amazing. Oh, and I love Kareem Hunt coming on and being a pass-catching back out of the back. I love it. I love this guy. But with Green Bay, I mean, or rather, I should say with New York, you know, I thought Saquon was good. Everyone thought Saquon was going to come out and pick. But I said I was worried because the supporting cast around him was different, because they were going to have this rookie quarterback, because they didn't have OBJ anymore. And sure enough, guess who was the guy who came out and was this year's Leonard Fournette? Fucking Saquon Barkley. God damn it. And I was hoping, remember last week, I was hoping, and I would love to say that Scott Berman, that this is a get-right game for Saquon too. But last week was supposed to be the get-right game for Saquon Barkley. And he just doesn't look right. In fact, he looks really, really bad. There's no explosiveness. There's no cut. That high ankle sprain is not healed. I thought the bye week would let him finish healing up and have him come out with some explosiveness. It's just not there. Am I taking him out of my lineup? Fuck no. Is he probably going to help me lose? Probably. I mean, this is a game where he absolutely should be able to run all over these Giants, but I mean, or rather, run all over Green Bay, but I think this is just going to continue, much like Fournette last year. He's the big bust this season. I didn't see it coming. I didn't believe. If you would have told me at the beginning of the season, I'd be like, nah, it may not be as good as last year, but I mean, they're probably going to still rely on the run. He's just looked bad. That high ankle sprain is not healed. It's not a good season for Saquon. I do not expect this to be a get-right game. But I can't take him out of the lineup. I can't take him out of the lineup because they keep putting, if they're going to play him, I have to play him. And that's the way it goes. And somehow that team keeps winning anyway, so let's hope it gets going. Now, on the Green Bay side of the ball, this is a great week for Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones should absolutely run all over these guys. Jamal Williams should be a decent flex play. And Devontae Adams. It's a great matchup for Devontae Adams. I expect him to see a lot of balls. I think you're going to see, and when I say that, I'm talking in the neighborhood of like 11 to 13 targets. That's what I feel like is going to happen for him in this game. And I'm telling you, and I think he brings down 8 to 12 of those. So I think it's a big, big game for Devontae Adams. Thank God, because I got him. And also, I would play the Green Bay defense. Because the New York Giants offense has been so anemic, because Evan Ingram is still so banged up. I mean, he might play, but even if he does play, I don't know if you can put him in your lineup because, again, a hurt foot is a very bad thing for a pass catcher. It affects your ability to cut, ability to run. It's no bueno, baby. Tom Sims, welcome to the show. I know you don't play fantasy football, but if you did, you'd find this real fucking fascinating. Let's have a little hot toddy. Man, that's good. Scott Barone, welcome to it. Hey, listen, Jamal Williams. Here we go. We got another great question here. If you have lineup questions, and I will try to still do my set your lineup Saturdays. Again, I'm sorry I've been remiss about some of these things. I've been working so much. I've been traveling so much. It's been hard to keep up with everything. But I'm at home this week, baby. I'm going to be having a great local Thanksgiving here in Los Angeles. It's going to be a great weekend. Dave Kerr, Jamal Williams, Joe Mixon, or James White. Cincinnati is up against the Jets, which I don't mind telling you is a very, very good defense. They're playing their guts out right now. They're a team that wants to scrap their way in there. I mean, I don't think they really have much hope at 4-7 of making the playoffs, but they're starting to look like a team that will definitely make the playoffs next season. They're the team that we were hoping they could be with Le'Veon Bell. They're starting to gel. So for that reason, I don't like Mixon. Jamal Williams, I like him. Again, if we're talking a flex play. Now, we're talking about James White going up against Houston. The problem with James White is anybody that isn't named Julian Edelman, you just don't know how much they're going to get used. We're talking Sony Michel. We're talking Sanu, who most people have dropped, including myself, because while I gambled on him before the Devontae Adams trade, he had one great game, and then so anybody can have a big game or can have a total zero game. So for me, your safe play is Jamal Williams. Although Joe Mixon has looked pretty good of late, this Jets defense is very good. I don't like them in this matchup. Let's take a look. Let's see what Mixon's done. Because Mixon has come online as of the last few weeks. There's no denying it, but I know he had a bit of a tough game last week. So, yeah, last week in the loss to Pittsburgh. Again, Pittsburgh still with that very good defense. He only put up 8 points. But before that, he had 15 points, a bye week, 18 points, and 17 points. So he'd been back on track. But going up against this Jets defense, man, I don't know. I see him winding up more down there in that 8-point range. And Jamal Williams has been surprisingly productive. I had him earlier in the season. I was always afraid to play him. God, there's so many Williams. To find Jamal is hilarious. But let's look at what he's been doing. He put up 12 points against San Francisco. His lowest game was 7 points versus Carolina. But for the Chargers, 14 points, 17 points versus Kansas City, 11 points versus Oakland, 26 points versus Detroit. And now he's up against a very soft New York Giants defense. He's had double-digit points in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out of 5 out of his last 6 games, Jamal Williams has delivered double-digit points. And you're trying to tell me he won't do that again against the Giants? I think Jamal Williams, especially since they have been mixing him in a lot more than Aaron Jones owners would like, even though I think Aaron Jones, and it may be that Aaron Jones has such a good day, that would be the only thing that I think could ruin it for Jamal Williams, is that Aaron Jones gets so hot that they just keep feeding him the ball, which is entirely possible because the Giants just are not good. So, but for me, of those 3 people, I think Mixon gets shut down against the Jets. I think James White is just so iffy against that, how much he's going to be involved. So it's between Jamal Williams and James White for me. You go with your gut. For me personally, I like Jamal Williams. But again, it's up to you. You make the call. I don't want to be the one responsible. Of course, you're out of the hunt anyway. Okay, I'm so sorry. That's such a dickhead thing to say. Because you do, and you know what? I love that you're playing to the end. And that's the thing. I hate it when guys who are in the playoffs get mad at guys who are not in the playoffs for continuing to pick up players off the waiver wire and then you complain when guys quit and don't set their lineups. Which is it, guys? Because I like guys like Dave Kerr who play to the last game, no matter what, especially in that league. We have a consolation round where, the winner of the consolation round automatically gets to choose his position in the, he can pick first if he wants to in the next draft. So he gets to pick whatever, but it's the only set position we have, and it's that one. Jet Jr., welcome to the... You've been out of the hunt since week 10. Yeah, I know. But you keep playing and you keep setting your team. And God, that's what makes a good fantasy football player. I'm the same way. I don't care if I'm eliminated from the playoffs. I'm setting my lineup. I'm picking guys up off waiver. And I'm going to try and win whatever games I have left, God damn it. Because it's still fun. It's still a competition. And there's still games to be played. You know, there's a lot of teams that are eliminated. They don't not show up to their fucking games. They show up and they play their games. And listen, if you have been eliminated, hey, maybe it's time to get a little experimental. Maybe it's time to start throwing some Hail Marys and put in some players that you know what? I believe James Washington might go off because Devlin Hodges and him have a fun connection. Put in fucking James Washington. You got nothing to lose. Start rolling that dice and see what comes up sixes. All right, Scott Berman saying you totally changed my mind. Were you going to play Breeze? Listen, I'm not telling you go with your gut. If your gut's saying Breeze, but listen, take it from me as someone who benched Kyler Murray versus San Francisco to play Aaron Rodgers versus somebody that they should have thrown a million fucking miles on, coming off like 2 30-point games, and he went out and gave me 9 fucking points versus the Chargers. It was the Chargers game. Do you remember that game? And they got butt-fucked by the Chargers in very good weather. There's no reason that should have happened. So, and he had been coming off huge games, and then he went out there and blah, blah, blah. So just don't do it, man. Stick with Lamar Jackson. He got dance with the one that brung you. That was the mistake I made, and it's almost cost me the season. I'm in an absolute must-win position in that league. If I don't win, I am in the last spot to make the playoffs in 2 out of my 3 leagues. I cannot lose this weekend. It is a second must-win weekend for the Wilson. And I'm going with Kyler Murray, baby. Over Aaron Rodgers, who has a very cake matchup versus the Giants. Again, this should be, but I could see this being a very heavy, Aaron Jones, very heavy Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams day. That's what I see happening here. Philadelphia at Miami. Listen, these are not good teams, but it could be a get-right game for both. Now, on the Miami side of the ball, you don't want to play running back because that's the strength of the Philadelphia defense. On the Philadelphia side of the ball, listen, play Ertz. Ertz is going to eat. It'll be a second fucking Thanksgiving come 10 a.m. on Sunday when Philadelphia goes down there. It's going to be Ertz Day. I'm hoping Alshon Jeffrey plays because I don't think Miami has anyone that can cover him if he plays. I like Wentz and I like Alshon to actually do pretty well in this too. Even Aguilar might do well. And on the Miami side of the ball, Devontae Parker. I think you can play Devontae Parker. And this Gesicki guy, if you're really hurting for a tight end, this is a great matchup for tight ends. I think that he might be able to get something going here too. Jacksonville at Tampa Bay. Let's talk about Tampa Bay. The defense has really been shown up. They're particularly good against the run, right? And Jacksonville, Leonard Fournette has been running great all season. He actually got in the end zone, 2 times last week, which he hadn't done since week 1. Oh my God. And he's been very productive without touchdowns that he finally got it done last week. And I feel much like, remember I said he had that breakout run in week 2 and I was like, I think he has a taste for it and I think he's going to really run now. And he did. Okay. Maybe now he's got a taste for the end zone and I think he sees the end zone again. But Tampa Bay, very good against the run, not particularly good against the pass. That's why I like Nick Foles. If you need to stream a quarterback, Nick Foles could have a decent day. DJ Chark, Conley, I think those guys do very well against the Tampa Bay defense. And again, and this is one of those games, now this is a game that could be a very high scoring fantasy points day because you got 2 defenses. Tampa Bay, not great against the pass, better against the run. Jacksonville defense has been, pretty middle of the road across the board. Tampa Bay has great weapons at wide receiver. I think Tampa Bay probably wins this game, and I think they do it by getting it to Chris Godwin, getting it to Mike Evans. And we've also seen on the Chris Godwin, Mike Evans thing that it swings back and forth. Last week was Chris Godwin. So who do you think is going to really bust loose this particular weekend? That's right, Mike Evans. Tennessee at Indianapolis. Listen, this Indianapolis defense is so much better than people give them credit for. And we all already know that the Tennessee defense is a very good defense as well. So again, We're looking at one of those games where on the surface it looks like it should be a high-scoring game, but in reality, it could be a very defensive game. Even still, you got to run with my sweet baby Derrick Henry. Especially, he's having the season I knew he would have because they changed quarterbacks. He finally has a quarterback that can actually matriculate the ball down the field. And so he's getting the ball to a guy that I really like in this matchup, and that is Mr. A.J. Brown. I think I picked him up. I'm going to play him. I love him in this game. I think he's going to do great. Again, tight end options. Indianapolis side of the ball. You've got Jack Doyle, Tennessee side of the ball. Jonnu Smith has been pretty involved, especially now they have, I hate to say it, Tannehill's throwing the ball pretty fucking good. And I like Jacoby Brissett. Now, on the running side of the ball, again, both of these teams are very good against the run. They're not as good against the pass. They're both kind of middle of the road. So if you're going to play Jamal Williams, even, if Marlon Mack comes back, he's going to be a little bit banged up. Don't expect the same production out of him. And I'm tempering my expectations of Derrick Henry. I need Tannehill to get the ball to Brown so that can open up Derrick Henry. But as we've seen, they're finally, unabashedly handing the ball to Derrick Henry and saying, go beat those guys up. And he's doing it, and I fucking love it, baby. By the way, back to the Detroit game. I love Bo Scarborough. I think he's going to have a balls day against Chicago. Tennessee, okay, New York Jets versus Cincinnati. We kind of already talked about that. Play Sam Darnold. If you need a replacement, play Sam Darnold. I think he could have a great day versus Cincinnati. Don't play anybody on the Cincinnati side of the ball. Jets defense is very, very good. I think much like they rickrolled that team last week, they rickrolled the Oakland Raiders last week. I think they butt-fuck the Cincinnati Bengals. And in fact, I may switch from Carson Wentz to Sam Darnold for this particular week because I think they're going to go in there and absolutely rock this Cincinnati team. Washington to Carolina. Listen, Carolina defense is the play here. Washington defense is also a good player. The Washington defense is much better than their offense, but Carolina defense, I think they might be the number one scoring defense of the weekend because, the young quarterback Haskins, makes a ton of mistakes. Their running game, the little DeGuy, the little Peterson, they're all over the place. The passing game, is suspect at best. I don't like a lot what's going on here. I just love the Carolina defense. And, obviously you're going to play Christian McCaffrey. I wouldn't play Kyle Allen in this one. But listen, he's been pretty consistent to DJ Moore. And Washington, they haven't been that great against the pass. I like DJ Moore still. So there's a lot to like going on there on the Carolina side of the ball. Washington side of the ball, listen, you got to play who you got to play. If you have to play Geis or Peterson, you got to play him. But just don't expect too much. San Francisco and Baltimore, listen, as we said, you stick with Lamar Jackson. Dalton wants revenge. Boyd will go off. That's the thing. I mean, that is an interesting thing that Dalton is coming back into the game. And I think you're right. I think we're going to see the all-time best Dalton, but not against this Jets defense. Dalton will not, I'm sorry. The Jets they're going to show why he got benched again. They're going to beat him up pretty bad, And Boyd, maybe Boyd has a decent, again, now, the Jets defense has been great. I wouldn't expect very much out of Cincinnati. Because again, they didn't get to 11-0 purely on the back of Finley. They got there mostly on Dalton's back. Again, I agree. I think that Dalton will probably have the best game he's going to have all season. But this Jets defense is fucking great. And they're going to beat him up. San Francisco, Baltimore. Listen, if anything, I'd be suspect of playing the San Francisco. If you were going to ever not play San Francisco's defense, this would be it. Don't get me wrong. Play San Francisco's defense. You have to. But this Baltimore defense is hotter than the surface of the sun. The whole team. And so you got to play. In terms of the wide receivers, it'll be interesting to see if Sanders starts getting balls this week. I think this is the week that Sanders, so it makes it tough. I think you play Debo over Sanders, but don't be surprised if this is the week when Sanders starts to take back his share because he's still the speedster. He's still the guy that can get it done. But I would again play Debo Samuels one more week if you have to. Don't play Tevin Coleman. And if you can, actually, I would avoid playing most of the offense for San Francisco, with the exception of George Kittle. You have to play George Kittle, but I wouldn't play Garoppolo. I wouldn't play Debo. I wouldn't play, avoid these guys if you can, because this Baltimore defense is on fire. That being the case, San Francisco, again, great defense, but Baltimore's offense they just got the weapons, man. And so I would, don't be surprised if they come out and they're actually able to score on the San Francisco defense more than anybody else has all season long. But you never know. They might just show up and stonewall them. Also, don't be surprised if this is a far more defensive, low-scoring game than anybody expects. But again, the league burying this matchup at 10 a.m. on Sunday is absolutely mind-boggling to me. LA versus Arizona. Oh, man, listen. Gurley's getting the touches. He just doesn't look the same. It's as simple as that. He just doesn't look the same. What are you going to do about that? On the Arizona side of the ball, listen, Kyler Murray has proven he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. This is a very good Rams defense. But again, this kid's very smart. Everyone thinks of him as just an athletic quarterback, but much like Lamar Jackson, he's much smarter than you think, and he's coming out and he's playing virtually mistake-free football even on the run. He doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. His numbers are fantastic. I like Christian Kirk to see some action in this. And again, I like Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake is a guy that he's just finally in a winnable position, in a good position with a team that has talent. But again, the Arizona defense, even though they have T-Sizzle, they've been a little suspect. So I do like LA to be able to throw the ball. The run game hasn't been great, but you got to play Todd Gurley. Do not play Gerald Everett. But I think the pass game could have a pretty good day on both sides of the ball. Honestly, Kyler Murray he's smart, he's accurate, he's electric. Don't be surprised if he manages to find a way to get that ball to Christian Kirk all afternoon. And Kenyon Drake. Denver versus the Chargers. Now, this is one where I would say play both defenses because both offenses are struggling. Although, it's supposed to be a good matchup. This is supposedly a very good matchup for Phillip Lindsay. But all these guys are stacking the box because they have that Allen kid. Brandon Allen, I guess is this Allen. We have 3 Allens playing quarterback right now in the NFL. Brandon, they're going to stack the box. That's what's been hurting Phillip Lindsay's production. Expect that to be the same, especially when you got the pass rush you got here. The ones I really like in this are both defenses. That's who I like in both of these. But again, on the Chargers side of the ball, I'd like both Melvin Gordon and Eckler to have good days. Obviously you're going to have to play Keenan Allen, but don't be surprised if Mike Williams has a good day. And Hunter Henry. But ultimately, I think the Chargers have better weapons on offense, even though these are 2 very good defenses. I would play the Chargers side of the ball much more than the Denver side of the ball. Although, a guy I like that he keeps looking for, Noah Fant, another tight end streamer option. Noah Fant, I like him on the Denver side of the ball. And listen, I want to like Phillip Lindsay, but I just see stacked boxes, a great rush all day. I think it's going to be a tough day for Phillip Lindsay, even though I'm playing him in my Comedians League, not playing him, playing Kenyon Drake instead in my League of Record. Kansas City versus Oakland. Listen, my man, Mahomes. And if one thing, obviously Oakland's going to be looking to bounce back after getting shellacked by the Jets. But the Kansas City defense is playing better. Obviously, Mahomes is going to be coming off a bye week, so hopefully he'll be healthy and rested. And you don't want to mess with a healthy, rested Mahomes. And don't be surprised if Mahomes goes out there and has a day similar to what we saw Lamar Jackson just do. I honestly can see there being a 5-touchdown game by Mahomes in this one. In terms of the running backs on Kansas City side of the ball, you don't want to touch them. Oakland, you got to stick with Josh Jacobs. I like Darren Waller in this one. I like the weapons on both sides of the ball. I think this is one of those games, high offense, low defense. Don't play either defense, play both offenses. I think both offenses, obviously the tight end on Kansas City. What's his name? You guys tell me. I'm blanking on him right now. But obviously you're going to play him. So it's an offensive game. I think it's a high-scoring game. I think you play both these guys. New England, Houston. I mean, listen, I'm worried about Houston's weapons. New England's going to take away. They're going to, just like they took away Amari Cooper, they're going to take away DeAndre Hopkins. Expect Hopkins to have a very difficult day, which obviously, but that's why I like Will Fuller, because I think Will Fuller ends up being the guy that is open. I think Carlos Hyde has a tough day. I think Duke Johnson does a little bit better, because I think they're going to have to do short dump out passes, much like a James White style. I think on the New England side of the ball, I think you're going to see a lot of the same in terms of defense coming right after him, trying to hit Tom Brady. Again, the only guy you can trust on the New England side of the ball is Julian Edelman. I don't like Kelsey. Thank you, Scott. Travis Kelsey. I don't know why I brain farted on that, but Travis Kelsey I think is a must start. And obviously you're going to play him. But I would stay away from the running backs on the Kansas City side of the ball because we don't know who it's going to be. Much like with New England, we don't know who it's going to be. Could be Damian Williams. Could be Shady McCoy. Could be Darrell Williams out of nowhere, which is what's so confounding. Both Kansas City's running backs, LaShawn McCoy and Damian Williams, were on the waiver wire in one of my leagues because they're just so infuriating not being able to tell. And it's the same thing with New England. Is it going to be Sony Michel? Is it going to be the other? So you don't know. So both these guys in this particular one, on the New England side of the ball, Julian Edelman's the only guy that I would trust starting my lineup. And on the Houston side of the ball, I mean, I really like Will Fuller. I think he's going to be the guy that ends him and possibly Duke Johnson. I think Carlos Hyde struggles. I think, I think it's a much more defensive game, much like the game versus Dallas. I think it's going to be much more defensive than offensive for both teams. And then finally, we close out with Minnesota versus Seattle. And listen, Minnesota 8-3, but they're going into Seattle. Yes, the Niners do look pretty amazing. I will agree with that. But, I mean, Baltimore looks more amazing, and I'm afraid Baltimore is going to get that game. Minnesota versus Seattle. Listen, Minnesota's decent. They're good. They're riding a very good defense, but they're going into Seattle, 12th man, Monday night. Expect a very big game from Seattle. Obviously, you're going to play Dalvin Cook, but guess who Seattle's going to key on shutting down? Dalvin fucking Cook. Minnesota, I think, struggles all night. I think Seattle comes out, and I think they beat them pretty bad. They're coming off a rest week. I think it's going to be a big-time Seattle day. I like the Seattle defense. I like, obviously, Russell Wilson. I like Chris Carson. Tyler Lockett, if he plays, I think he could have a very big game. So I got, and now, I don't like DK Metcalf, and I'll tell you why. Because the motherfucker keeps dropping balls. And the more he drops balls, they're going to start looking at Josh Gordon. And don't be surprised if this is the week when you start to see Josh Gordon getting some of those balls. Because DK has disappointed this team. He just keeps dropping fucking balls. I think this is the week you start seeing Josh Gordon get a little more integrated, get a few more shots down the field. They don't go to DK. I think they go to Josh Gordon starting this week. I like Seattle to actually beat Minnesota pretty soundly. I don't think that offense is going to get going. They're a dome team. They're going to be playing in the weather. I think it's going to be a very heavy Seattle day. I think Seattle wins it something like, 27-13, something like that. That's what I said last week. Maybe it is. I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. Who did the Niners play last week? I don't remember. I've already blocked it out. I'm on to next week. We're moving on. But listen, I like the Niners too. But again, offensively, they did. If Deebo Samuels hadn't caught that touchdown, Deebo Samuels wouldn't have had much of a day. Sanders had no day. Kittle was out. So. And what did I say? That Dwelly, they were all going to be looking for him this week. He wasn't going to be able to sneak out. And guess what? Dwelly dwelled at 0. So I was pretty right about that. So there's a lot of things. Vikings know weather. Sure, Vikings know weather as people, okay? But they play in a dome. They don't play outdoors. They are going to go to Seattle, play in the weather, and get beat. That's the way it goes. That's what the trouble Dallas had. Remember, it took Dak a quarter and a half to realize he needed to wear a glove in the rain. These are the struggles that dome teams have against teams in weather. And we're at that part of the season where weather becomes a big part of the game. So don't forget to check the weather reports too, because that affects passing games. That affects the amount they have to rely on the run. So when you're looking at games that are being played outdoors in bad weather, count on it to be more of a run-heavy day. So, that's it for this week. Jessica, thank you for tuning in. Let's see, what I got to go look it up now. But either way, you guys, everyone have a great week. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, guys. Fantasy football, hush reality. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter, FFHR Podcast. That's the handle, at FFHR Podcast. Fantasy football, hush reality. We'll see you next week. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll talk on Saturday.